This is Amon Göth. He was one of the worst people during World War II. He was responsible for the Plaszow forced labor camp near Krakow and killed many people out of pure spite. He treated them like animals. Göth personally killed more than 500 prisoners and ordered the murder of many others. Göth is best known for the film Schindler's List. The film tells how Oskar Schindler saved 1,200 Jews from certain death and shows the terrible cruelty of the camp guards. A particularly well-known scene is how Göth shoots prisoners from the balcony of his house without showing any compassion. Because of his heinous actions, Göth is called the Butcher of Plaszow. After the war he was tried and sentenced to death. But even shortly before his execution he showed no remorse. Amon Leopold Göth was born on December 11, 1908, in Vienna. As a child he was called Moni. Göth didn't do well in school and dropped out without graduating. At the age of 17 he became active in right-wing radical groups. He had no career prospects and became anti-Semitic. He disliked the Austrian government and was impressed by the Nazis, especially after their success in the 1930 Reichstag election. He joined the NSDAP and shortly afterwards became a member of the SS. He rose quickly because he was unconditionally obedient and had no scruples. In July 1934, there was a National Socialist coup attempt in Austria that failed. It began with an attack on the Federal Chancellery in Vienna by SS men who disguised themselves as soldiers and police officers. At the same time, the false report was spread that the then Austrian Chancellor Engelbert Dollfuss had resigned from his office. The National Socialists then rebelled against government troops in parts of the country. However, the uprising was suppressed, with many deaths, including Chancellor Dollfuss. Amon Göth's role in the July Putsch has not yet been clearly clarified, but it is known that he was wanted by the police afterwards and fled to Munich. In the years that followed, Göth kept a lower profile, but that changed after his mother's death in 1936. After the annexation of Austria in 1938, he returned to Vienna and joined the SS there. After the outbreak of the Second World War, Amon Göth volunteered for the Waffen-SS in 1940, where he was quickly promoted several times due to his blind obedience. He was transferred to Poland and soon became part of the perpetrator's inner circle. In occupied Poland, Göth was commissioned to expand the Plaszow labor camp, building barracks for around 2,000 Jewish forced laborers from a nearby concentration camp. He was then responsible for the dismantling of numerous smaller ghettos. In addition to numerous atrocities by members of the SS task forces, hundreds of bribery attempts were also documented, which established his later reputation as a corrupt officer. Göth now recognized the business opportunities of the murder of Jews. In the summer of 1942, he was commissioned to procure building materials for so-called secret construction projects. It is believed that this involved the procurement of raw materials to build crematoriums in the Belzec, Sobibor and Treblinka extermination camps. In these camps, hundreds of thousands of Jews were murdered in gas chambers immediately after their arrival, and the loyal worker Göth procured all the necessary materials. From March 1943, Göth was tasked with expanding the infamous Plaszow labor camp, where he further cemented his vile reputation. His first task was the ruthless expulsion of Polish families from their homes near the camp. At the same time, he tightened the schedule for the construction of new barracks under the threat of death. From this point on, Amon Göth's sadistic and cold-blooded murderous actions began. When the missing 2 girls were noticed during a morning roll call, he quickly shot nearby Jews with his service weapon. The missing children were later hanged in public on Göth's orders, while a popular song played in the camp. Musical accompaniment during selections and punishment actions became a feared trademark of Göth. The camp's inmates soon became aware of the importance of Göth's headgear. If he wore his cap, there was no great danger. But when he wore his Tyrolean hat and white gloves or a white scarf, everyone knew he would choose a victim to murder. His favorite thing to do in the morning was to randomly kill camp inmates from the balcony of the camp villa. Göth is said to have personally murdered 500 people, men, women, and children. He enjoyed seeing his victims' sudden fear of death when one of them was suddenly struck by a bullet. Göth was probably one of the most cold-blooded murderers of his time, which was also evident when the Krakow ghetto was liquidated in mid-1943. Here he was particularly noticeable for his physical abuse of women, children, and infants, and their subsequent killing. In just 2 days, 1,000 Jews were murdered in the Krakow ghetto, and another 4,000 were deported to extermination camps. Eyewitnesses even reported the desecration and rape of women who had already been killed by the SS. Until September 1944, Amon Göth was the camp commandant of the Plaszow concentration camp, where under his reign of terror around 8,000 Jews were murdered and thousands were deported to extermination camps. Everyday life in the camp was characterized by arbitrary executions, harassment, humiliation, and torture by Göth himself or the guards. Successful escapes were punished with the execution of every 10th prisoner in the escape group. Shortly afterwards, he was arrested by American intelligence in May after evidence of his atrocious war crimes was leaked. In the subsequent investigation, numerous surviving Jews testified against the Plaszow monster. Göth was then extradited to Poland. In 1946 he was put on trial in Krakow, where the public's hatred of him was so great that he had to be protected by security guards to avoid being lynched by the angry mob. When making statements about violent excesses that had been committed, he questioned the credibility of the witnesses and only defended his actions by saying that he had carried out orders as a soldier and denied any responsibility. Göth appeared unimpressed during the trial and expressed his contempt for the court by demonstratively polishing his fingernails. For the murder of more than 8,000 people in Plaszow alone, complicity in the deaths of another 2,000 people in the liquidation of the Krakow ghetto in March 1943, and hundreds of other murders, Göth was sentenced to death by hanging. He showed no remorse until his execution 8 days later. His last words were Sieg Heil. What do you think? Write your opinion about Amon Göth and his actions in the comments. Please subscribe to support the channel and never miss a video.